What's going on, guys? In this tutorial I'm going to walk you through how to create this neon glitch effect in Photoshop with only a few clicks. So this here was the original image, and this is what the neon glitch Photoshop action created. So I'll show you a few more examples, and then I'll show you how to set up your Photoshop document, play back the action, and then edit all the layers. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is make sure your subject is cut out from the background. So for this action to work properly, your subject needs to be on a transparent background. So because my subject's here on a white background, I'm just going to use Photoshop Select Subject tool here. And that should do a pretty good job of just making a selection around the subject. So what I can do now is I can hit Control or Command J, and that will duplicate the selection off the background layer here. So now I can just delete the background, and now my subject's on a transparent background. You can call the layer whatever, doesn't matter. So when you've done that, just check the size of your photo. So go to the image menu and go to image size. For any Photoshop action, I always recommend using high resolution images. You're always going to get better results. So you can see the long side dimension here, the width, mine's 4,000 pixels. So if you open up your photo and say it's only 1,000 pixels, just take the longest dimension here and increase that to anywhere between, say, 3,000 to 5,000. So I'll just increase that to 4,200, enter. Now the next thing we need to do is load up the action. So you can either click on the play icon, which might be here for you. If that play icon isn't there, just go to the window menu and go to actions, should pop up. Click on this icon here and then select load actions. Load up the action side, the folder for whatever version of Photoshop you're using. So this here, and you can see that the action is here inside this folder. Now before we play the action, we need to load up the brushes that were included in the download. So if you just hit B on the keyboard, then right click anywhere over your canvas here, that'll bring up the brushes panel. Select this icon and import brushes. Navigate to the folder in the download, brushes, and I've got in brackets here, must be loaded into Photoshop. Go inside there and double click on that file. And these are the brushes here that the action needs. All right, I'll click away from that. So let's go back to the actions panel here. 12, open the folder. And you can see there's a bunch of actions here, but the one that you want to play is this one. So all of these, and I've just got a note here, don't touch any actions below here. So you don't need to touch any of these. These are the actions that I created to actually build the effect. So you want to select this one, and all you want to do from there is click this play icon. So during the playback of the action, there'll be 4 steps which will just guide you through to the completion of the effect. So this is step 1, and I won't read all this, I'll just read the title. It's create neon graphics behind your subject. So what you want to do here is firstly click stop. And so this step, you'll notice that the action stopped now. This step allows you to create neon graphics behind your subject. So you can use text, you can just draw on shapes, you can use Photoshop's shape tool, import your own shapes, add a logo, anything you want to do. This is the first step of the action where you can do that. So you can see that we have this layer here, and it's inside this folder, create text / shapes inside this folder. So if you want to build up a lot of neon shapes, what you want to do is just you can create new layers and just make sure they're all within this folder here. So for example, I might just add some text to start this. So I'm just going to hit T. I've already got the font I want to use, and I'm just going to type neon glitch. Okay, I'm going to scale this up, Control or Command T, hit enter, and I might move that here. Okay, now what I might do is create a new layer. So Control Shift N or Command Shift N, and now I might just brush on some lines here. So I'm going to hit B, just grab I might grab a soft brush here. I might up the size of the brush to 15. I'm just going to draw on some shapes here. something like that. Now, when you've drawn on your neon elements, all you need to do is then click the play button again in the actions panel, and that will resume the playback. So here's step 2, it's brush on neon light radius. Now this step's very simple. All you need to do is click stop here, and you'll notice that the brush tool is already selected for you. And what you want to do is start clicking over your neon shapes, and this will form the light radius of the neon light. So just click around. If you want to hide all the panels quickly, just hit tab. That'll hide everything. So start brushing around, and the areas where your brush intersects the subject, your subject will be more illuminated in that area. So if I just brush here, you can see that this red is intersecting the subject's leg a bit. So this section will be lit up a bit more than the surrounding area. So just keep that in mind. So brush around there, brush here, down here. Let's say I wanted the subject's, just to ensure the subject's face is a bit more illuminated in the end result, I'll just click a few times over his face there. Alright, I'm going to hit tab to bring back the panels, and so when you've done that, all you need to do is click play again on the action, and then the next step will be about 30 seconds away, so I'll fast forward the video and get to that point. So this here is step 3, and it says create neon graphics in front of your subject. So what you want to do here is click stop, and similar to step 1, you can again start brushing on or creating text for your second neon element. Instead, this time your neon element will sit on top of your subject. So I've just got a brush tool here, and I'm just going to start brushing, and you can see that now when we brush it is on top of the subject. So yeah, you can use text here, or just draw on some lines, whatever you want to do. So draw on some lines down here. Alright, that'll do. So when you've created your second set of neon elements, all you need to do again is click the play icon in the actions panel, and then that will then resume to step 4. So I'll fast forward the video to that point. So here is the final step, step 4, and it's import light effect overlay. So what you want to do here is click continue, and then in the neon glitch download, navigate to the folder called light effect overlays. And inside this folder, there's 235 light effect overlays, which you can add to your design. So yeah, just pick any. I'll just pick, say, 192 here. Okay, double click, and then you'll notice it's inside Photoshop here with this bounding box around it. So before the action resumes, we need to scale up the texture over our design. So I'm just going to hit Control minus here, Command minus to zoom out. And I'm just going to rotate this texture and then scale it up to fill the canvas. And so when you've placed the texture, all you need to do is hit enter on the keyboard, and then that's it. The action then will resume to the finish. So I'll fast forward the video to that point. Alright, the action just finished, and here's the result. So I'm just going to collapse this action here. I'll come back to talk about these three a bit later on in the tutorial. So I'm just going to collapse the actions panel for the moment so we can jump into the layer panel. So as always, what I like to do after an action is completed is to collapse all the folders that are open. Okay, so to do that, you hold down Control Alt or Command Option, and in this case just click on this arrow here next to the folder icon on the color options folder. Click on that, then release the keys, and then everything is collapsed. So what I'll do, I'll just go from the top down to the bottom here, and we'll discuss what every layer and every folder does. I'll also put time codes below if you want to jump around between different sections of the tutorial. So this top folder is the color options. Okay, so if you just turn this, if you just expand this folder, I've just created 30 color options here, and the way these work is that you just turn on the visibility for that folder, and it will apply a different color look. Now you can go inside these folders if you want and play around with these adjustment layers. So in this case, This is a hue and saturation adjustment layer. So if you want to play around with this color, I can just grab this handle here, drag that slider around. Every folder is set up slightly differently. So for example, in this case, well, this one's the same. Again, it's got a hue and saturation. So you just want to just experiment a bit. You can also combine colors of different folders. So let's say I turn that one on and this one. Maybe I just want to use a little bit of opacity from this color. So you can see I'm just adjusting the opacity here of the folder to create a blend between this yellow tone and this green tone. So that is the color options. Let's turn that one off. Next one down is the overall adjustments folder. So if you go inside here, so I've just made some layers here to affect, you know, the overall brightness, contrast, overall color saturation, things like that. So the overall contrast, this one here, I've got in brackets opacity. If you drag the opacity hand, increase the opacity of this layer, it will just add contrast to your results. So that's a quick way to boost the contrast if you like. Overall color saturation, you can just double click on that, and again you can use this hue slide here to adjust your existing colors, or you can increase or decrease the saturation. Overall brightness and contrast is just simply a levels adjustment layer, so you can grab these handles here and affect the brightness and contrast. Now this one below by default is turned off. It is called the color randomizer, and I've got in brackets here, double click and then click on randomize. So if I just turn this one on, it just applies a color. But if you double click on this and then click on this gradient here, it'll bring up this gradient editor. Now what you want to do is click this randomize button. Now every time you click randomize, it's going to apply a different color look to your design. So at the moment I've got the opacity of this is at 67%, so could have actually made that a little bit lower, but you can experiment with that. So let's drag it down to about 36. So you click on here, click on randomize, and yeah, it'll just apply a different set of colors. So this is a really cool way to just generate infinite amount of color variations. You can also experiment with changing the color model to say RGB. That'll give off, you know, some slightly different results. Also experiment with like changing the blend mode. So you can change like soft light, and I'll just use it about 30% opacity. And then click randomize again. Try H, you know, just experiment here. So that is the color randomizer, and that's the overall adjustments folder. Next is the light effect overlay folder. So this is one you probably want to experiment with a bit. So if you just turn this folder on and off, you can see that that is the light effect overlay that we imported during the action playback, which was step 4. So if you want to replace that and experiment with others, you've got to select this layer here, light overlay, and I've got in brackets here, right click and replace content. So I'm just giving you some instructions there on how to do that. So you just right click and then select replace contents, and then you can navigate to the light effect overlay folder and just select any other overlay, and that will then immediately update in your design. Okay, so it's that simple. So if you want to rotate, don't forget you can just continue to rotate this layer. So Control or Command T, and then you can experiment with doing what you want there. So there's a couple of adjustment layers here to experiment with the color. So for example, this one here, gradient color overlay, I can double click on this, and if you wanted to, you can adjust the angle of the gradient, and of course you can play around with the scale. You can change the style here, and you can change the colors here as well. So there's a bunch of presets up the top here. You know, you can select any one of these, do what you want there. And the top one here is randomize color. So if you just want to quickly randomize the colors of the existing gradient, you can just turn this on, double click on this, it's a hue and saturation adjustment layer, and then adjust this handle, and that will randomize the colors of that gradient color that you've set below here. Okay, I might actually quite liked it up here. I thought that looked, oops. Yeah, I'll leave it there. All right, so that's the light effect overlay folder. Next one down is neon over subject, and I've got in brackets here move folder. So if I just select that folder and move around, you can see that is the second set of neon lights that we applied, which sit over the top of the subject. So if we go inside this folder, there are a bunch of different layers here. So I'll just turn them all off, and we'll start off with this one here. I've just got this one titled Replace Me, double click to edit. So if you want to just play around with these shapes, you can double click to go inside here. And so these are the shapes that I drew on. So we've got this layer here, create text or shape. So if you want to add any more or create some text or import shapes or erase some existing ones, you can do that. And yep, just make sure you apply it on this layer here. This layer above, change text color. I probably should have called that change text or shape color. But you can just double click on this, and this is just a quick way to recolor your neon element. All right, you can also click on colorize if you want to, increase that saturation right up, and then use that handle. So let's undo that. And then I've got this one here if you want to use a gradient colors. So you can just double click on that and apply sort of a gradient color effect to your neon light. Now what's important here is you'll notice that when I double clicked on this layer, it opened up a new tab here. Okay, so what we've done here, we've gone inside a smart object. So with smart objects, once you edit them, when it opens up a new tab, you must save those changes in the new tab for those effects to be applied in the main design. Okay, so say we just made a bunch of changes here, we added new neon elements. You want to hit Control or Command S or File, I'll wait for that, or File Save. Now when you've done that, you just close that down, and then it will update in the main document here. So all these other layers here, down to here, they're all duplicates of this Replace Me layer. The truth is you can actually double click on any of these just to go in and edit them, but I just named this one Replace Me just to remind you, how to edit the layer. So this one above is called the distorted copy. So if I turn that on, all this one is, it's a duplicate of this layer. And if I just twirl this down to reveal the effects, I've just applied some basic effects to this. So you can see that there. So you can move that around if you like. In some scenarios, this might be too intense, that light. So you can just adjust the opacity, play with the blend mode, things like that. This one here, increase neon visibility. If I turn this one on, the opacity of this is set to 10%. So if you find that, like, say you've typed out some text and some of the detail is lost in the text because of all the glows that are going on, you can increase the opacity of this layer here, which will then make the neon light your details a bit more obvious. So you can see on this left-hand side here, I'll bring this opacity to 0. So you can see how the details are a bit lost, but as I increase the opacity here, they start to come back. So that's just a handy little layer if you need to use it. These ones here are horizontal and vertical light streaks. So I've turned those ones on. So you can see those, the effect of those. The vertical one's a bit more prominent here, so I'll just twirl this one open. And you can see, because they're all smart objects, when you apply filters to smart objects, it allows you to re-edit them at any time. So you can see that there's the motion blur that I apply. So if I turn it on and off, you can see that there. You can also double click on this to re-edit it. So you can see they're the settings that I applied during when I was making this. But you can adjust that. So you can see that there. Same with the horizontal. And basically anyone where you can see a drop-down menu here, this arrow with a smart filter applied. So these three below are glitch 1, 2, and 3. Excuse me. So I'll turn those on. So you can see, let's zoom in a bit down here. So I'll turn those off, turn those on. So you can see, maybe a better spot is here. So you can see it applies some subtle shapes and lines to your neon shape area. You don't need to use them all. If you don't like, you can turn them on and off. Now I've got in brackets here, move mask. So you can see the mask here. If you select that, move that around, that's where you can sort of move the glitch effect around. If you hold down Alt or Option and click on that mask, you can view the mask there. Okay, that's the same with any of these. So yeah, that's how those work. If you don't want them, just turn them off. All right. Next is the light streak, so I'll turn it on and off. So you can see out there. So if you go inside this folder, there are just two layers, vertical light streaks and horizontal light streaks. So again, you can re-edit these settings by twirling this arrow. So let's just take a look at the vertical one again. So for example, there's the motion blur settings. You can also play around with the blend mode of these. So you can see they're set to screen. In some cases, this might be too bright. You can adjust the opacity here. Okay. Also change the blend mode to maybe something like lighter color. Okay. I'll just readjust that to screen again. Okay, fairly simple. So you can see that I have applied the mosaic effect here. So you can see what that's doing to the lines here, the blurred lines. So you can double click on this and adjust this property here. So pretty simple setup for the light streaks. Next is the glitch folder. So if you turn that on and off, you can see that that has quite an effect. If you don't want any glitch at all, yeah, just turn the folder off. But let's go inside here and see how I set this up. So there's just two layers, glitch 1, glitch 2, and I've got in brackets here, move, mask, and layer around. So if you want to adjust the positioning of these, all you need to do is select the layer, and if I move that around, that will start to offset the glitch. Okay, so it's pretty cool, so you can play around with that. You can also do things like just scale it up. So Control or Command T, to scale it up, you can see what's going on there. Zoom back in. Or you can select the mask here and move that around. So as I move that around, that's another way to offset the glitch. Now, if there's any areas, say you've run the action and there's a bunch of glitch effects happening over your subject's face and it's distorted the features of the face, you can select the mask here, hit B, that'll activate the brush tool, right click, go inside the neon glitch brushes here and select this soft brush and brush, using the left and right square brackets, you can adjust the size of the brush. If you brush black into the mask, that'll hide what's ever inside the folder. So if I start brushing, say, over this N, see how that's just erased the glitch from that area. So yeah, any details you don't want, and that applies for all these folders here. So anywhere where you see a mask, that allows you to control the visibility of what's inside that folder. Okay. Alright, so this layer here is called color offset, and I've got in brackets move layer around. So I just select that layer and start moving around. You can see what that layer actually does. It creates this really neat looking offset of colors here. And the way I've done this is, and this will make more sense after I talk about this layer below, but if you, let's just zoom in a bit, and I'll just move this around. So I double click on this layer. You can see what I've done is I've knocked out the red channel. So if I turn that on, you see it has no effect. All I've really done is move the layer. But when I remove this red channel, it creates this kind of effect. And you can turn that on and maybe knock out the green if you prefer that look. But that's just how this layer, that effect is done. So I'll click OK there. Zoom back out. So if you want to, move this over here, just make sure, just take a look at these edges here. You might want to mask that out. So let's say I move that to there. What you want to do is select the mask, hit B, grab a soft brush, make sure it's black because we want to remove it, and just brush away any hard edge there. Okay, but by default I only had it offset a little bit, maybe a couple of pixels, so that is for you to experiment with. So the layer below here is called Edit Main Design. This is a smart object, so I've got in brackets here double click to edit, just to remind you. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn all these off except for the Edit Main Design. And you can see these, the design that you see here, all the layers used to build this effect are inside this smart object, okay? And so what the color offset is, it is just a duplicate of that smart object there, that layer. It's just a copy of it. So then I can apply some additional effects to that. So for example, if I just, let's say, go filter, blur, motion blur, just apply an effect. Just knock that down. Okay, you can see that it's applying it to the entire edit main design smart object there, okay? And that's the same for the glitch layers, okay? The light streaks, they're all just duplicates of this bottom smart object here, edit main design. It allowed me to, just turn this off, it allowed me to take this entire design and then create additional effects on top of this, okay? So let's just turn all these back on, and I need to turn that motion blur off. All right. So if you just double click on this edit main design, and you can double click on any of these, you know, inside the glitch or inside the light streaks, it's all the same layer. But I've just named this one here, just to remind you, just to double click to go inside. You double click, and then here are all the layers that I created to build this effect. So again, you want to just collapse all these. So Control Alt or Command Option. Click on this top folder icon arrow here. Click on that. Release the keys, and everything is collapsed. Now again, since we've gone inside a smart object here, it's created a new Photoshop document here. Okay, so any changes that you make within this document, they must be saved for it to take effect in the main design. So this top folder here is the neon shape. So this is what you created that sits behind the subject. So if you go inside this folder, okay, so this is the main layer here. So again, this is another smart object of it's called neon shape. Double click to edit the shape. So you can double click on this one, and then that goes inside further inside the smart object. So if you wanted, so you got at the top here neon shape, okay, and you can see I've applied a mask, and the mask is your subject. So I'm basically saying for this neon shape not to enter the area of your subject. So if you wanted it to, what you could do is just hold down Shift and then click on the mask, and that will disable it. Okay, so now when I save this document, so remember, whenever you go inside a smart object, you need to save it for it to take effect in the previous document. So I click Save or Control S, then I'll close that down, Control W. Now you can see that neon is sitting on top of the subject. Alright, so I'm just going to change that again. I'll just make it behind. So you can see that I've kept all the effects here. So if you want to experiment with adjusting, say, the outer glow amount, the color overlay, anything like that, you can do that here. Okay, this layer here is neon subject intersect glow. So this is a glow that will occur when your neon shape touches the edge of your subject. That glow will enter into the subject area just a little bit. So you can see the glow will pass into your subject anywhere where it's white and then fade off. Okay, it's a bit technical how I've done that, but that's essentially all it is. It's a very subtle layer, but just helps with the overall effect. I'll just save that, Control S, and then let's go back into here. So you can quickly change the color here. By default, it's using a gradient color, that blue to purple. So you can double click on that, or blue to red. So you can change the colors there. You can change the blend mode if you like. Linear light's a good one. Okay. By default, it's set to color. Might actually change this one to linear light. The purple stands out a bit more. If you just want to use a single color, you just turn this off, and then double click on single color, and then change the color there. But let's just stick with the gradient color for now. Alright, that's the neon shape that sits behind the subject. The layer below is a simple one. It's just called overall color tint. So you can just double click on this, and if you want to apply just a general overall color, you can do that here. Next one down, scan lines. If I turn this on and off, so you can see the effect that creates around your neon area. Now, you can remember the step, I think it was step 2 in the action, where you brushed on the radius of the light around your neon shape. So that these scan lines will only appear within that radius, okay? And as I go down through here, you'll notice that other elements will only appear within that radius. So you can see like this cloud that's appearing around here. Well, that's only going to appear where you brush on that light radius. So that is an important step, step 2 in the action. Let's keep going. So scan lines, there's a couple of layers, noise 1, noise 2, and then the lines here. So you can turn that on and off. Now that is a smart object again. So if you want to re-edit these lines, you can just double click on this filter gallery text here, and then you can play around with the settings here. So you can see that is a halftone pattern that's creating the lines. Okay, it's a mix of grain sitting on top of the halftone pattern. So you can play around with that. You can adjust the opacity if you think it's too strong. Just adjust the opacity of the folder. This folder here, lighting. So if I turn that on and off, so this has quite an effect. It's quite an important set of layers inside here. So go inside here, and this bottom one here I'll start off with is called outside neon area brightness. So the area outside of the area that you brushed on for the light radius, this allows you to darken that area. So if I double click on this adjustment layer, this is a levels adjustment layer. So if I want to make it darker, I can say grab this handle, drag it to the left, and you can see that's making it darker outside of the region that you brushed on. Okay, so you can make it lighter if you want. So I try to pick a good sort of default level of brightness. You can also use this handle here if you like. Okay, so this will make more sense when I show this mask. So if I hold down Alt or Option and click on that mask, we can take a look at it. So the area in black was the area that in step 2 that I brushed on. So this levels adjustment layer is only going to affect the area in white. So it's going to lower the brightness, or you can turn up the brightness of the area in white. Okay. So this layer above is the neon area brightness. So if I have a look at this mask, this adjustment layer is going to affect the area that we brushed. So if I double click on this and now increase or decrease the brightness, I can adjust the brightness of that area. Okay. Now the subject area brightness, you go inside here. Okay, another level of adjustment layer. You can double click on this. So anywhere within the subject where we didn't brush, okay, you can adjust the brightness of that area. So you can make it darker or lighter. That's up to you. Again, I've just tried to pick a good default level. This layer, change subject lighting color. So this is just a simple hue and saturation adjustment layer. You can, if you want to alter the colors of the lights within your subject, I've created a dual lighting setup for your subject, which is the folder below, which we'll talk about in a sec. So this is just a quick way to recolor that if you like. Let's just set that back to 0. So this folder here, color and lighting on subject. So we'll go inside this folder. There are a bunch of different layers and folders. So this first one, color highlights. So if I turn that on and off, okay, so this here is the dual lighting setup. So if I zoom in here, you can see that, and you'll notice this on your own photos, that there's a range of colors that happen within your subject. So that primarily comes from this layer here. So if you want to edit the properties of this, you can see that I've added a bevel and emboss effect to create that. You can double click on this. Let's actually zoom out. Ooh, let me do that again. I'll zoom out a bit. Alright, so let's double click and bevel and emboss at the top here. You can play around with this setting here. If you want to change the angle of the light on your subject, you can do that here. You can also play around with all these other settings, like if the red's too strong, you can change that. You can also change the color. Yeah, experiment how you want. So I think I'll just leave it at its default level. Just cancel. So that's the color highlight. The thin edge outline. So if I turn that on and off, now this is very subtle, and this will appear in the area where we brushed on. Any area that intersects your subject where you brush, it'll create a very thin boost of light on the edge. So you can see just here, so turn that on and off. Now you can go inside here, and again it's a bevel and emboss setting, so you can play around with that. Next one down is the secondary light. So if I turn that on and off. So this layer is pretty simple. It's a gradient, okay? It's red and then it fades to transparent. So you can adjust the angle here of that secondary light, and of course you can change the color, things like that. Subject edge brightness. If I turn this on and off, this is quite a prominent layer, okay? You can again, this will only appear in areas where you brushed on, where that area intersects the subject. Okay, so if you want to adjust the edge brightness, you can double click on this layer, grab a few of these handles here, so you can drag that down, drag it up. It's up to you. You can also change the blend mode. If color dodge is too strong, maybe change it to screen. It's up to you, but thought the color dodge was a good one. Thin edge highlight, so you can see that there. Again, this is an inner glow, so you can just double click on this and do things like change the size if you want to make it less prominent. So play around with those. Next one down is the clouds, so go inside here. So there's 3 layers here. I'll just zoom out a bit. So this one is called cloud close to neon shape. So if I turn it on and off, so these are the more prominent clouds that will appear close to your neon shapes. So you can adjust the opacity of those. Currently they're set at 30, so you can bring them out even more, or just turn it off altogether if you don't want it. And then you've got some subtle background clouds here. Okay, so if you don't want those, or you can use them one at a time, it's up to you. Subject color fill. So this one is an additional option here if you want to further adjust the colors of your subject. This is just a simple layer that I created just to basically remove all the colors from your original photo. It's just a black and white adjustment layer here. Okay, so it doesn't have much of an effect here, as you can see. I'll turn it on and off, but in some photos, if you turn it off, a lot more of your original photo colors might come through. All right, this next one down is subject toning, and I've got in brackets here, edit the smart filter. So this one has quite an effect on the look of your subject here. If I turn the smart filter off, you can see that was the original photo, okay? So if I hadn't have created this step here of this shadow and highlights smart filter, it wouldn't get to this look here. And I encourage you to adjust this. So if you double click on this, you can play around with all these handles here. So if I just click around on tone here, you can see just how much of an impact these sliders have. So you can play around with the radius here, lower that down. So this section here will decrease the strength of the highlights. It'll basically make them darker. So if I click along there, you can see that having an effect. So yeah, play around with those. I'll cancel that for now. So that is the main design here, and that's all the layers. Background color, you can play around with that one. So the important thing to remember is if you've jumped in here, you've made a bunch of changes, to save it. So then it'll update in the main document here. So I'm going to hit Control S, save that. It might take about 5 or so seconds to update the design. Control Command W to close that tab down, and here we are back in the master Photoshop document. Next, let's take a look at these additional actions here. Just below the play neon glitch action here, we've got adjust subject toning, adjust neon glow amount behind the subject, and then in front of your subject. So these are basically just shortcuts that I created that I found that were useful while I was building this action So rather than say to adjust the subject toning, rather than double clicking on this layer, going down here, clicking on the smart filter and adjusting it there, all you can do is just select adjust subject toning, press play, and then it'll automatically go to that layer, open up the shadow and highlights adjustments here, and then you can just play around with that. Okay, so if you've made changes, you just click OK, and then it'll jump back, it'll save it, and it'll jump back into the master document with those changes applied. Okay, now this is the same for the adjust neon glow amount behind the subject. So let's just say you've run the action and the glow, you've created a lot of shapes and there's just too much glow going on. Just check, it could be because of the light streaks, that generally adds a lot of glow, but it could also be coming from the glow that I've applied to the neon shape. So if we just click on this one, click play, what this is going to do, it's going to jump inside the master design, it's going to jump inside the neon shape smart filter, and it's going to open up the neon shape properties here, and it's going to jump to the outer glow. So you can see here's the layer style window here, and then from here you can play around with the brightness, the settings of the neon glow. If you want to make it wider, you can do that, or narrow, that is up to you. So range is a good one to sort of quickly kill the brightness if you need to do that. So when you made those changes, click again, just click OK, and it's going to save those two smart documents, smart object layers that were open, and update all those, and then it's done in here. And that's the same for this one here, the glow in front of your subject, so the red neon shapes here. If I click play, it's going to do the same. I've just created a black background so you can clearly see what's going on. So yeah, you can adjust the glow amount here, so I can boost that up, click OK, and then that is done. Alright, so that's a run through of all the layers and all the folders. Now if you wanted to run the action again, I've kept your original image down here below, so you've got to shift select all these layers and folders and hit delete, and then you can just open up the actions panel and then click play and then start the process again and experiment with creating different neon shapes. But I undo that because there's another step that I like to do just to sort of fine tune and experiment further with what I have here. And I've covered this before in other some other of my photo effect tutorials. It's using the filter, camera raw filter. So what I want to do, I want to take a snapshot of my design here and have it all on one layer. So rather than being split up into a lot of different folders and layers, I want it on one layer. So to do that, you want to select the top color options folder and hold down Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E, and that puts everything we see onto one layer here. Okay. So now I'm going to right click and go to Convert to Smart Object, because what that's going to allow me to do is that once I apply the camera raw filter, it'll allow me to re-edit those settings if I need to. So let's do that now. I'll go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And this is just a great place to experiment further and sort of fine tune what you have. So for example, I always like to adjust this clarity handle a little bit. So if you can see, if I drag it to the left and right, see what that's doing. So I can add just like a little bit of sharpness, you could call it. Sort of helps bring out some details if they're lost. Similar to texture. So if I drag it all the way to the left, sort of smooths it out. Right makes it a lot more bumpy and gritty. So I'll experiment with that. You can adjust the brightness of the blacks, the sort of the darker tones here. So I generally just like to wiggle this handle around and see if there's a look I prefer. So maybe a little bit, crush the blacks down a bit. Similar for the whites. You can sort of boost up the brightness further of the neon lights if you want. The shadow is similar to the blacks. Highlights, contrast, exposure, vibrance down the bottom here, playing with that, or the overall color saturation. I always like to jump into this. So if you click on this icon here, browse profiles, there's a bunch of different color looks inside here as well. So you can just hover your mouse over these and that will apply a different color preset. Now, so modern is one I usually like to check out because these top ones, particularly this one here, sort of boosts everything. The brightness, contrast, the color saturation. So what I'll generally do is I'll click on this one, and you can see it's created this. It's got this amount handle here. So if I drag this all the way to the left, that's basically our original. It's removed all that effect. But as I drag this to the right, it applies this modern 01 effect. You can apply it a little or a lot. So I usually drag it all the way to the left, and as I'm dragging to the right, I'll look at my design and see if it looks better with a bit more, contrast and brightness. But in this case, I don't think it needs any. Maybe just like a fraction. That applies for these ones. Say if you like this color, but you don't want it all, just drag it to the left and then slightly increase it to see if you prefer that look. So when I'm done there, I'll just click OK. And I always like to jump into this one here, presets. Again, there's some more color options here. Right? There's a bunch of black and white there. But also I'd like to add a bit of sharpening here. So sharpening, and there's vignetting, which is pretty cool. So you can sort of darken the edges of your design that way. So I generally like to add like a little bit of light vignetting. Then I'll click OK. I'll apply all those changes, and you can see now it has applied the camera raw filter on this on this layer here. So I'll turn it on and off. You can see that there. And if I wanted to re-edit these settings, I can just double click and I'll reopen the camera raw filter with all my settings still there. And maybe I think, oh, okay, the blacks they're probably a bit too dark, so I can boost them back up. Click OK, and that'll update again. Alright, so that's it. Don't forget, I've put time codes below if you need help with a particular section of the tutorial. I'll also put a link down to my support page below and some other photo effects that you might be interested in. But yeah, enjoy using the effect, and I'll see you in the next video.